Today we are going to start from the first chapter of Brihad Bhagavatamrta. And how many chapters are there? 7. And how many parts are there? 2 parts, and each part has 7 chapters. So the first chapter, the first part, is known as Bhauma. The word Bhauma is coming from the word Bhumi. Bhumi means earth. So Bhauma means earthly, like earthly planet. There are how many planetary systems in the universe? Each universe has, Hugo, how many? Each universe has how many planetary systems? So the middle one is known as Earth. So the planet that we are in, that is called earthly planet. And the history of this Earth planet is known as Mahabharata. The history, the great history of India. It is called the great history of India because the rulers of India, the kings of India used to rule over the entire Earth planet before. Every planetary system actually has one ruler. That is the general custom. Like the sun planet has one ruler. What's the name of the ruler of the sun planet? Surya Narayan, but now the one is called Divashan. And similarly there is a ruler in the moon planet. There is a ruler in the Swarga Loka, and in this way there are different rulers. There is one ruler, one supreme ruler in each planet. And then he has the subordinate rulers. Just like the temple president, each temple has a temple president, but then the temples have different departments, and those departments have departmental heads, and then they can have subdivisions and subdivisional heads and so on and so forth. So the ideal system is that there is one ruler on the earth planet. And in the early days, the rulers of the land of India or Bharat used to rule the whole world, the whole earth planet. And the geography of Bharat has been given as the territory between the land, between the saltwater ocean in the south and the Himalayan mountain range on the north. So that is the description of Bharat. And Bharat is the land where the Vedic culture is practiced. Nowadays, India is not considered to be Bharat. No one calls India as Bharat Varsha, because the India has deviated from the Vedic culture. So when the whole world, or especially the rulers of India, follow the Vedic culture, then the rulers of India, according to the Vedic injunctions, rule over the entire earth. So histories are generally about the rulers. The histories are not about common people. The history is written about the rulers, or great personalities create history. So the history of the world was called, or is called, Mahabharata. So this Mahabharata was compiled by Vyasdev. And it was written by Ganesha. Ganesha is a very expert writer. He writes very fast. Plus he has 4 hands. And so as he was writing, as he finished writing with 2 hands, he held the paper with his 3rd hand, and we wrote with the 4th hand. Then when that paper was exhausted, then he took the paper on the 1st hand and wrote with the 2nd hand. So in this way he wrote continuously. And there was a condition that Vyasdev will not allow him to stop. When Vyasdev approached Ganesha to write Mahabharata, and he would dictate and Ganesha would write, Ganesh actually said, okay, I can write on one condition, that you will never let me stop. You have to just speak continuously. So Vyasdev said, okay, but I also have one condition, that you won't write anything without understanding. And that's why whenever Vasudev needed a break, he gave a very complex shloka to Ganesh. So therefore Mahabharata at times has some very complex shlokas. And Ganesh got completely bewildered. He didn't know. He didn't understand the meaning. So he started to scratch his head and think. And in the meantime, Vasudev went, took his bath, did his puja, and took his prasad and came and started. So that's how Mahabharata was written. And this Mahabharata is describing the history of India. So generally, the Mahabharata we get comes up to the death of Parikshit Maharaj. Because after Parikshit Maharaj's disappearance, Kali Yuga began. After Parikshit Maharaj's disappearance, the adharma entered. The irreligiosity entered. So Mahabharata somehow stopped. So Mahabharata actually stopped there. So after hearing Mahabharata from Rishi Jaimini, sage Jaimini, Janmejai, Parikshit Maharaj's son, inquired or requested him to end the Mahabharata with the mellow of conjugal or madhura, the sweet mellow of Krishna consciousness. Because the other Mahabharata spoken by Vaishampayan was actually dealing mostly with the Karma Kanda section of the Veda. That's why we often find conflicting statements in Mahabharata, because that Mahabharata is dealing with the Karma Kanda section of the Veda. But the Karma Kanda section is meant for who? Stri, Vaishya, Tatha Shudra. And Brahma, Dija, Bandhu. Those who do not have the refined intellect to understand the very lofty philosophy of Krishna consciousness, Mahabharata is actually meant for them. Just a basic history, and Vasudev included Bhagavad Gita within Mahabharata, and by reading Bhagavad Gita, people would come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. So it was just a lead to bring them to the spiritual path. But Jaimini, the way he described Mahabharata to Janmejaya, that was actually a Mahabharata based on pure Krishna consciousness. And pure Krishna consciousness leads to Madhurya, or the most sweet mellow, the most sweet relationship with the Supreme Personality. So when he requested Jaimini in that way, then Jaimini started to tell him about what happened after Parikshit Maharaj heard Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva. And before that, he gives the history of Srimad Bhagavatam. That Vasudev, he, at a very mature stage of his philosophical understanding of the Vedas, very developed stage of, or rather, very mature stage of understanding of the Vedic literature, Vedic philosophy, he compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam. And he prayed to Krishna, and he saw Krishna, his external energy, and he also saw Bhakti. Now there are two worlds, the spiritual world and material world. The material world is Krishna's external energy. The material nature is Krishna's back. Back means averse to Krishna. This material nature is averse to Krishna. Therefore, material nature is miserable. If Krishna is Rasho Vaisha, if Krishna is the source of all joy, then to be averse to Krishna means to be averse to all joy, all ananda, all bliss. And averse to bliss means misery. Therefore, material nature is full of misery. But someone is bridging the material nature and the spiritual nature. And who is that personality? Who is bridging between the material nature and the spiritual nature? No, Bhakti Devi. Devotional. The personification of devotion itself. The only way that one can, only means to go back to the spiritual sky is devotion. What you said is also right, that Lord Shiva is bridging between material nature and spiritual nature, but that's from another perspective. You see, the living entities, when they come to the material nature, they do not come directly from the Lord. All the living entities are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Krishna. But when the living entities reject Krishna and decide to enjoy without Krishna, decide to enjoy themselves without Krishna, then by Krishna's arrangement, they come to this material nature. And this material nature is Krishna's external energy. But Krishna doesn't directly get involved with his external energy. Because if Krishna gets directly engaged with his external energy, then the external energy cannot remain as external energy. Isn't it? If it has a direct contact with Krishna. External energy is external energy because there is a break between this energy of Krishna and Krishna himself, Krishna's spiritual. The living entities, therefore, are sent in the material nature through the via medium of Lord Shiva. Therefore, Vishnu actually transforms himself. The living entities, the conditioned souls, or the generally living entities are originating from Shankarsha, Mahavishnu. Actually from Mahavishnu. But Mahavishnu does not directly put them into the material nature. So Mahavishnu transforms himself into Sadasiva, Sambhu. And through the via medium of Sambhu, the living entities come to the material. Therefore, Lord Shiva is considered to be the husband of Maya, Mahamaya. Just as the husband impregnates the wife, similarly Lord Shiva is impregnating the material nature by injecting the conditioned soul. And when the conditioned souls come to this material nature, the material nature becomes manifest. Actually, the material nature becomes manifest when Mahavishnu glances at Maya. So, in that sense, Lord Shiva is, and also when the living entities go back to the spiritual sky, they have to go back through the via medium of Lord Shiva. Without the mercy of Lord Shiva, one cannot go back to the spiritual sky. Why? Because Lord Shiva is guarding the gate of Vaikuntha. So, what is the business of a guard? The business of a guard is to prevent the trespassers from entering. Isn't it? Illegal entrance is prevented by the guard. So Lord Shiva guards the gate of Vaikuntha. Unqualified people cannot go back to the spiritual. That also has been explained, you'll come to that in the second part of Brihad Bhagavatamrta. When Gopkumar goes back, he encounters Lord Shiva. And even before going up to Lord Shiva, one has to have the permission of Mahamaya. Mahamaya actually is in charge of this prison house of material nature. So that is Mahamaya's business. She is taking care of the living entities, conditioned soul, the rebellious living entities. And she punishes the living entities for their misdeeds, for their wrong activities. So Bhakti Devi actually is bridging between the material nature and spiritual nature. So this is how, in the very beginning, it has been established that without the help of devotional service, no one can actually go back to the spiritual side. If someone tries And even if he goes up to Brahma Jyoti, he has to fall down from that point. Because without devotion, one cannot enter into the spiritual sky or Vaikuntha. So, region of Vaikuntha and beyond is accessible only through pure devotional service. So, Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from his spiritual master, Sukadeva Goswami, he noticed that his mother was very much afflicted due to the imminent death of his son. So Parikshit Maharaj consoled his mother, asked him, "Mother, why are you lamenting? What happened?" And now that I heard the most wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam, the most beautiful Srimad Bhagavatam from my spiritual master, I have become totally free from any fear due to this bodily destination. I am completely free from any fear. So then Uttara asked, "My son, then please tell me what you learned from your spiritual master." And then Parikshit Maharaj replied that actually my time is very short, like I have to leave very soon because 7th day is coming to a close and any moment Takshak may come and kill me. So I will try to explain to you in summary. I'll give you the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that is Brihad Bhagavatam. The Brihad Bhagavatamrta. Brihad means, as I mentioned yesterday, Brihad means vast or great. And Bhagavatamrta. Srimad Bhagavatam, but this has become Bhagavatamrta, the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is even the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Very essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, in the first chapter, there is a description how during the month of Magh is actually December, January. And during that time, in the confluence of Prayaga, on the occasion of Purnima, the full moon of Magh is a very auspicious day to take bath in the confluence of Ganga, Jamuna and Saraswati. This confluence is at a place called Allahabad, or previously it used to be called Prayaga. Prabhupada actually lived there for many, many years. Prabhupada had his business in Prayaga. And Prabhupada even named his son as Prayaga. One of his sons' name is Prayaga. Prayaga, Mathura and Vrindavan. 3 sons of Prabhupada. The eldest son is Prayaga. Then next one is Mathura. And the third one is Vrindavan. So, the Prayaga is actually a very holy place. Ganga and Jamuna are 2 most auspicious rivers. Someday if I have time, I'll tell you some stories about Ganga and Jamuna, how pure it is. That just a drop of water, just a touch of a drop of water from Ganges can deliver one from all his reactions. So there are many such stories in the scriptures, mainly in Puranas. So, you can well imagine if Ganga and Jamuna and Saraswati can be so pure, then what to speak of their confluence? How pure, how wonderfully auspicious that place must be. And then at a very auspicious time, like the month of Magh, is another very auspicious time. And full moon is also a very auspicious time. So in the month of Magh, during the full moon, to take bath in the confluence of Ganga, Jamuna and Sagar is considered to be very, very auspicious. So it is so auspicious that the sages from other planets come down at that time. sages from different planets come over. And at one time, they did. All the great sages assembled in the Prayaga. They took their bath at a very auspicious moment, at the full moon night of the month of Magh. And then they were doing Ishtagoshti. When the sadhus get together, they just talk about Krishna consciousness. The sadhus don't waste their time. They simply discuss about Krishna and the benefit of Krishna consciousness. So they were discussing about Krishna. They were doing the Ishtagoshti. And at one point, they all started to praise each other, saying that how great a devotee he was, the other person was. Devotees never brag about his devotion. Actually, the scripture says that pride or bragging destroys all good, all pious activity. So one should not glorify himself. In the material plane, everyone is busy glorifying himself. But the spiritual platform being diametrically opposed to the material platform. In the spiritual platform, everyone glorifies others. No one actually wants to take credit himself. So they were doing that. They were glorifying each other. And at that time, Narada Muni wanted to know who actually is the real devotee of the Lord. Who is the greatest devotee of the Lord? And at that time, Narada Muni saw that one Brahmin arrived with his family. He was a very wealthy person. This wealthy Brahmin arrived in the confluence of Ganga and Jamuna and Saraswati in Prayaga with his shalagram Shila, and he kept his place, he cleaned up the place. This is also an important consideration. How does one clean up the place? One cleans up the place by sprinkling the water of Ganga and Jamuna. And also one can put cow dung. The cow dung is all purified. So in this way he purified the place, and then he placed his shalagram on a throne, on a shinghashan, and he worshipped the shalagram very sincerely, with a lot of devotion. And in the meantime, the prasadam was cooked. A huge amount of prasadam was cooked by his family members. And then he offered the prasad, offered the bhoga to the Lord, Narayan Shila. Shaligram Shila is non-different from Narayan. So he worshipped Narayan, and then he distributed that prasad. He fed the Vaishnavas, the Brahmanas, and all the people, those who are poor and suffering, the beggars. He fed everyone. And then after feeding everyone, he took the prasad with his family. So Narada Muni was so impressed by his devotion that Narada Muni approached that Brahmana and told him, my dear Brahmana, you are the greatest devotee. You are the recipient of the greatest mercy of God. Actually, devotion and Lord's mercy are directly proportional. The greater one's devotion is, greater is the degree of the mercy of the Lord that is showered upon him. So Narada Muni was looking for the greatest recipient of the Lord's mercy. And he felt that this person is the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. So Narada Muni asked him that please accept my humble obeisances, offered him humble obeisances, and started to glorify him. Because by glorifying a devotee, one makes spiritual advance. Of course, there is a difference between flattery and glorification. The glorification is the proper, appropriate presentation of one's great deeds Whereas flattery is without any foundation, without any basis. When we glorify somebody, when we attribute certain qualities or certain deeds to someone whereas he did not actually do that, he didn't perform that, or he doesn't have those qualities, then that is called flattery. In Vaishnava world there is no flattery. Flattery is very mundane. But the Vaishnavas, because the Vaishnavas are so full of so many good qualities that it is not difficult to recognize those qualities and attribute those qualities unto them. So Narada Muni started to glorify the Vaishnava, this Brahmana, but the Brahmana became very ashamed. He said, "Please don't speak like that." He said, "I'm not a devotee." He said, "Whatever I did is my dharma. I'm a Brahmana, and as a Brahmana, I'm supposed to worship the Lord. And due to the Lord's mercy, I have some wealth. So I use that wealth in feeding Mahaprasad to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas and the poor. So where did you see any greatness in me? But if you really want to see a great devotee, then please go to South India, the southern part of India, and meet such and such king. This king is so great that in spite of being a Kshatriya king, in spite of being engaged in so many different activities, he is always engaged in serving the Lord." Pointed out that he is a Brahmana, therefore his duty is to worship the Lord. That's why he cannot be considered as a great devotee. But the real devotee is the king, because he is a Kshatriya. By his occupation, he is not actually supposed to worship the Lord like that. But because he is a great devotee of the Lord, he uses all the facilities and all the wealth that he has in serving the Lord and spreading the glory of the Lord to the people around him. And so Narada Muni became very impressed hearing that. So he thanked the Brahmana and he immediately went to the king. Now, Narada Muni, I'm sure you all know, has a very wonderful ability. And that ability is that he can travel anywhere with the speed of mind. In a fraction of a second, Narada Muni can fly onto some other place. So in course of this first part of Brihad Bhagavatamrta, you'll see that. Like Narada Muni is just flying from one place to another. Not only in the material nature, but even in the spiritual nature. So Narada Muni immediately arrived to the king's palace, and he saw that the king was completely absorbed in Krishna consciousness. He is ruling his kingdom as a representative of the Supreme Personality of God. And that is the ideal king. That is an ideal king. An ideal king never considers that his kingdom is his property. An ideal king considers that his kingdom is Krishna's property, and he is simply a caretaker. Regarding that, there is a very nice example. There was a very famous king about 500 years ago. I think he was contemporary to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, over 400 some odd years ago. His name is Shivaji. And Shivaji, one day, he was a very pious person. And the name of his spiritual master was Ramdas. He was a devotee of Lord Ramchandra. So one day, King Shivaji was standing on top of his fort in Satara. That's in Maharashtra. And he saw that his spiritual master singing the glories of Lord Ramchandra, playing a kartal not a kartal, he has a stringed instrument called dotara with 2 strings, and he is singing the glory of the Lord and going door to door begging. So Shivaji wondered that I am the king and my spiritual master is going door to door begging like this. So this is not right. He shouldn't beg because I am ready to offer him anything. So Shivaji just wrote something in a piece of paper and gave it to his attendant and told him when Ramdas came to his door, he should give him that chit. And so the next morning, actually in that chit, in the piece of paper, Shivaji wrote that all that I have is yours. So please accept my kingdom as an offering to me. It is yours. So this is how noble or how great the kings used to be even in the recent past in India. So next morning, Guru Ramdas came to Shivaji and told him, Shivaji, so now you have given your kingdom to me. So you are not a king anymore. And I am a beggar. So, and you have offered everything to me. So now you also have become a beggar. So you do one thing, you come with me and you carry my bag of that I collect the alms. And I will sing and you go door to door begging. And Shivaji did that. He went with his spiritual master and everyone was surprised. Everyone in the state, in the city saw that the king is begging from door to door with his spiritual master. And at the end of the day, Ramdas and Shivaji sat on the bank of the river. I think it's Kaveri river. And then Ramdas told him, okay, so now you take your kingdom back. But always consider that it's not your kingdom. It's the kingdom of the Lord that you are doing. So this was the idea of the Vedic kings. That when they were properly educated with the Vedic wisdom, they considered that their kingdom is Krishna's property. And they were simply a servant of Krishna, just a caretaker of Krishna. And in their kingdom, they simply wanted to establish Krishna consciousness. So Narada Muni was very impressed to see the king so Krishna conscious. So he approached the king and told him, my dear king, you are the greatest devotee of the Lord. And he started to tell him why he was such a great devotee. Because although he was a king, although he is in the middle of such opulence, although he has so much facilities to enjoy, yet he is not indulging into any sense gratification. He is simply ruling his kingdom as a humble servant of the Supreme Personality of God. But the king objected to that. The king said, Narada Muni, what are you, please don't speak like that, don't embarrass me like this. Because I am not actually I'm not a devotee. After all, I am a human being. My lifespan is very short. And besides that, I am constantly afflicted with threefold miseries of this material nature. So how can you consider me to be a recipient of Krishna's mercy? Because I'm so miserable. I am constantly undergoing the threefold miseries of this material nature. Although I register it or not, but that is the state of my existence. And the span of my life is so short. I mean, today I am a king. I am whatever I am doing for Krishna. But for how long? Within a very short time, my life will be over. So, I am not such a great devotee of the Lord. But the real devotee of the Lord are the residents of heavenly planets. They drank nectar, and by drinking nectar, their life has become free from all kinds of misery. And they have attained immortality by drinking nectar. So they are the real recipient of Krishna's mercy. And of all the demigods, Indra is the greatest. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead has taken up the position of his younger brother. And as his younger brother, he is receiving his worship directly from him. He is directly receiving his offerings from his hands. So, if you really want to see the greatest devotee of the Lord, then please go to the heavenly planet and meet with Indra. And he is the real recipient of Krishna's mercy. Thank you very much. So this is the first part, the first chapter of the first part of Brihad Bhagavatamrta, entitled as Bhauma, the earthly. Any question or comment? Shesha Prabhu.
Swami was writing this, he felt some remorse because he had to criticize the different devotees. And so, we take it that there's some fault in just being a Brahmin and just feeding everyone like that, and also the food is kind of desires of the heavenly planet or something like that.
Yeah. No. You see, first of all, a Vaishnava is adoshadarshi. He doesn't find any fault in anyone. He simply sees the qualities. For example, when the Brahmana told him that he was not a great devotee, Narada Muni just didn't reject him. Oh, okay, I understand that you are not a devotee. Okay, that must be the devotee. No, that's not the attitude of the devotee. The devotee's attitude is, like, his respect for the devotee who is taking such a humble position increases. Seeing that seeing the clarity of his heart and clarity of his consciousness. So this is the attitude of a devotee. Like when Narada Muni was leaving the Brahmana, he offered him obeisances. So this is what Narada Muni would do. Like, he was grateful to him because he is leading him to a higher platform. So he is accepting him as a guru because he is guiding him further to the spiritual path. So another thing is that Narada Muni is not criticizing anyone as such. But that portion came at the second part later on, when Krishna was chastising Satyabhama. And like that, so he felt embarrassed, that like he is, finding faults in the queens of Krishna and Dwarka. But those defects were pointed out in their devotion simply to magnify the glory of the residents of the Lord. It's kind of, that is the purpose. Not to humiliate them, but to enhance the glory of the devotees of India. Yeah.
It seems that the arguments that the Brahmana and the Kripa put forward as to why they haven't got Christ seems they're not really very strong arguments. Because I was suffering with threefold miseries, they bring the mercy. Narada is perceiving that he has got the mercy of his devotion. So it seems like Narada.
The strength of the argument lies in the sincerity of the presentation. On the spiritual plane, the strength of the argument doesn't lie so much on the logic behind it, but out of the sincerity of presentation. Like when the Brahmana said it, he meant it, right? And that's what convinced Narada Muni. And also from scriptural point of view, we can see that although Varnashram, say the very beginning of spiritual life is Varnashram. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy about the ultimate goal of life, the first thing Ramananda Roy presented was Varnashram. Varnashram actually is the same, just the counterpart of, like two sides of Mahaprabhu's teaching. The one is presented by Sanatana Goswami, the other is Ramananda Roy. Like we can actually see side by side. Like first stage of spiritual life is varnashram. But varnashram is not pure devotional service. But then again, in varnashram, there is the devotion, when devotion becomes the main consideration, then you see the Kshatriya's position who is involved, the Kshatriya's position is greater than a Brahmana's position. Because by occupation a Brahman is supposed to worship the Lord. But when a Kshatriya, in spite of being engaged in his royal responsibilities according to his varna, when he is dedicated to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then his devotion is considered to be higher. But one thing we'll notice, so he is pointing out the varnashram consideration. On the earth planet, it's a varnashram consideration, and in varnashram also, the devotion becomes the higher consideration, not the varna or ashram. And then we will notice in course of our discussion of different other chapters that the ultimate consideration that on the earth planet or on this material nature, the devotional service is actually tinged with karma and jnana. The pure devotional service is not actually available on this universe. Then the question may arise, then what about the pure devotees who are on this universe? Now Sanatana Goswami classified them, put them into a different category altogether. Like for example, like when he goes out of this material nature, goes to Lord Shiva, then after glorifying the position of the residents of Vaikuntha, Lord Shiva said that even greater than those devotees is Prahlad Maharaj. But where is Prahlad Maharaj? Prahlad Maharaj is in a lower planetary system. Right? So a devotee, a pure devotee may be anywhere, but he shines forth with the brilliance of his devotion, no matter wherever he may be. So, does it make sense? Yes.
But we understand Bhagavatam to be the essence of all the scriptures. And it is like the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, this question in my mind is, what is the essence of all the scriptures?
What is the essence? It's achinta, it's inconceivable. And anandamuri vardhanam, it keeps on increasing. You can't put a limit to it. You can't say that this is the end. If you say this is the end, then it's no more absolute. Isn't it? Absolute is without a beginning or end. If you say this is the beginning of absolute or this is the end of absolute, then it's not absolute anymore. It's relative. Right? So absolute is, the spiritual nature is absolute.
So that reveals scriptures actually be revealed is time by design.
Yes. That's why our position is to become dasa, anudasa, dasa. The lower you go, greater is the mercy. An example is given. I mean, just a material example, but it makes a lot of sense. You see, when you take a telescope, more lenses are there in the telescope, better is the vision, better is the visibility, or better is the power. Similarly, in the spiritual platform, more, you have in between you and Krishna is better for you. Better is the vision. Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned that the brilliant comes from Lord Shiva and they go back to Lord Shiva. You said that without his mercy, you can't go back. And then also you mentioned that Bhakti Devi is the intermediate. So how are they related?
Yeah. You see, they are related because Lord Shiva himself is a devotee. And Lord Shiva acts as a guru. You see, when you come to the gate, then Lord Shiva says, okay, you go. And the associates of Lord Shiva give us the instructions. Like Ganesh, Nandi, they tell us that, this Shiva is not different from Vishnu. Because the Puranas are actually saying that it's a great offense to see Vishnu and Shiva is different. So a devotee sees Lord Shiva is non-different from Vishnu. Just another transformation, another form. Just as Vishnu and Krishna are non-different, Vishnu and Shiva are non-different. But then again, in course of our discussion in Brihad Bhagavatamrta, we will see that how Lord Shiva's position is not the highest according to the spiritual consideration. And that is admitted by Lord Shiva himself. It's not that somebody else is judging that this is Lord Shiva's position. But Lord Shiva, it becomes so sweet, so much better when the person himself admits that there is someone who is greater than him. Yeah. Bhakti Devi related to? Bhakti Devi is related to Radharani, Srimati Radharani. One can say she is the expansion of Srimati Radharani. Yes, Achit.
We were just mentioning that it makes more sense to see Lord Shiva Vishnu as different, but this is one reference to Oriya Sundarayam Devam, Amaruddha Daivatai, Samakrina Gurisham. For some people, that one who considers Lord Narayan to be on an equal level that Lord Shiva and Brahmana is not.
Yeah. You see, when we try to drag Narayan down to that position, then it's an offense. There are two ways, two perspectives of looking at it. Like one is to drag the position of Narayan, like from his absolute position, if we drag him down to a relative position, then that is an offense. But to elevate Lord Shiva onto an absolute plane is favorable to our Krishna. It depends on, like our second offense is actually to consider the names of Brahma, Shiva to be equal to or independent of the name of the Lord. So that is from, like when you see sometimes Shiva devotees, the devotees of Lord Shiva consider that Vishnu is equal to Lord Shiva. Like they are actually, it's a Mayavadi consideration. Maybe we can discuss that some other time. Like today the time is over, time is up. Actually, we are only 10 minutes over. The next class is about to begin. Okay, Hansada Prabhu, you wanted to...
Well, in one letter, no devotee should see or think one devotee greater than a smaller or a greater social
Yeah, that's true. Okay.